The No Nonsense Roundtable. It's a weekly show broadcast on Rochester, New York's 50,000-watt iHeart radio station, News Radio Wham 1180. The host, Dom Genova, interviews guests from all walks of life, all with amazing stories to tell. What you are about to hear is a recording of a previous broadcast with limited commercials. Now, here's host, Dom Genova.
Well, welcome everybody to another edition of your No Nonsense Roundtable. I'm Dom Genova, your host, 10 o'clock every Saturday right here. Now, I have to tell you, my guest today is one of my idols. He's been in radio like forever. He is an American icon. He is a Peabody Award winner. He is in the National Radio Hall of Fame. He won a National Humanities Medal, and he is a Grammy Award winner. Like I said, radio all this time, and he is the inventor, I guess, or founder of Lake Wobegon and the Prairie Home Companion, and his name is Garrison Keillor, and I am so proud to have Garrison on the phone today. I am so happy to have you on my show. You have no idea, because I have been, I don't want to sound like a fawning fan, but I have been admiring you, listening to you, sharing your productions with my family, and I actually have been copying you because I invented my own town, and I hope you're not a very litigious person, because I have my own Lake Wobegon that I invented. And if you want to talk about any of this on the show or nothing on the show, that's perfectly fine by me.
We can talk about anything, Don, but I do mean to rid you of this burden of admiration, and so we'll take care of that right away.
Well,
it's for your own good. You're an independent person, and you're younger. The future belongs to you.
I'm only 10 years younger than you. So my story is
10 years counts for a lot.
Well, it does. You know, somebody said that growing old ain't for sissies either. Things are starting not to work. They used to work before. I mean, you can. Well, you know, the other thing is, quite frankly, you don't know how old you are. You know why you don't know how old you are, Garrison?
How's that?
If you died today, you're 100% old.
If only that were true.
Well, here's the thing about you. You have woven your way into American culture. You've had a long story. Going back to the 70s, you know, with kind of twists and turns and stuff like that. And the whole thing about my show is about people you know and you want to know more about, and people you don't know, or people's paths. I mean, the show before me is the Home Repair Clinic, and I figured that if people would tune in to see about their servo valve on their furnace, how about a show about just people? And it's a non-confrontational show. This is something where, you know, I just want to know what you think, where you've been, where you came from, how you got where you are. You know, and one of the things I like to start out with a really kind of silly question. I mean, you know, when you were 10 years old, what did you want to do?
When I was 10 years old, I wanted to stay in the library during school recess. I did not want to go out on the playground because there were bullies out there. And I had a teacher named Fern Molenbrock, and she allowed me to do exactly that. It went against her instinct as a teacher. You know, a kid should learn to get along in the world. Mm-hmm. But I was allowed to stay indoors, and I read books like crazy. I had been a slow reader, but I quickly caught up, and I came to love books, and so rather than competing at the chin-up bars, mm-hmm. or playing touch football, which turned into tackle football, or playing softball and dropping an easy pop fly, and thereby, you know, being embarrassed and, you know, and feeling, you know, weird and inadequate, which already, because I grew up fundamentalist, so I already felt like an outsider.
Mm-hmm.
Instead, I sat and I read books, and I read freely, and it was a huge moment in my life. I'm always grateful to her.
Isn't it amazing that I have this expression that I have? Every once in a while I get a chance to talk to a group of students at RIT, and I said a very, very, very small change in bearing when a ship leaves New York will have an incredible difference when it gets across to Europe. So there's one thing with her, with you, noticing that put your life in a completely different direction than it could have been if somebody just made you go out there and play football. And believe me, I'm there too. I mean, I was bullied when I was in school, and I found a way of dealing with that, and it pretty much was running away.
Mm-hmm. No, I have friends, close friends of mine, who played football, and they played it right up through high school and into college. We're good friends, but I noticed that in our conversations, in our reminiscence, football does not play a big part.
Right.
It is not a beautiful memory to my pals. They were yelled at. They were yelled at by the coach. They were embarrassed in front of other players. And they look back on this as, as a necessary passage into adulthood, perhaps, but it's not a pleasant memory. And my memories of the library and books and writing are beautiful memories.
Well, you learned. I would say you learned the gift of storytelling. I mean, that's what you do. I mean, you craft these beautiful stories, and most of them with a wonderful point to them. And at what point in time did you start doing that? Was that when you were young? My daughter would do this. She would sit at the computer and just write this every day. She would write some chapters in a story that she was creating. Were you doing things like that back when?
Well, we didn't have computers back then. We had mimeograph and hectograph, but I don't think I ever mastered storytelling. I don't think you can. I think it's always out there ahead of you. But what I think I mastered when I sat in the library and I sat with pen and paper, and I mastered the choice of pleasure.
Yeah.
The choice of pleasure over misery. And it's still a choice that I try to make, and I think it's a wise choice. And I'm glad your daughter does this, and I developed the ambition to make it my vocation. I developed that, I think, when I was in the 8th grade, and then that changes it. Then it's not a simple pleasure anymore. It's an ambition, and your ego is wound up in it, and you set yourself up for failure, and you become, narcissism. A kind of narcissism sets in. And so it becomes complicated. But when I first did it, and when I do it now, at the age of 82, ambition is gone. When you're 82, you're back to childhood, really.
Right.
And whatever you've done is done and gone. And I wake up in the middle of the night. I woke up Tuesday last week 2 a.m., and I think to myself, do I really want to get up? Yes. I have to get up, otherwise I'm going to forget these lines that have come to me. And you get up and you sit down and you wind up sitting at a laptop for 3-4 hours working on something for the pleasure of it. I don't know what will become of it. It may turn into something. It may not. The business of publishing a book, the business of producing a play, it's out of my hands, and it's not my problem. And so you come back to where you were when you were 10 years old.
You inspired me. I'm gonna have to tell you, you inspired me because with this radio show. I'm a former car dealer. It's a long story how I get to have a radio show. I sold the dealerships back in 2020, a week before the shutdown, which was very fortunate for me. My wife and I sold everything we had back when I was working for Chrysler to start this little dealership, and it ended up being a big dealership. And now I can do whatever I want, and what I want is this radio show, and the path that it takes is that I meet some very, very interesting people, and I also get a chance to do whatever I want to do. And then one of the things I do is I do a Christmas show, and I invented mimicking you. I invented my own town, and it's called Middle Finger Lake. And Middle Finger Lake, where life is perfect but could always be better. And when I see you at your show on Sunday, I'll give you a T-shirt, and I'd like to read one of the ads that I've done here. Let's see. When Isaac started Isaac Buick in 1940, he realized one thing, and his motto lives on today: don't be putting on airs. A Buick is good enough. Mr. Isaac realized that most Finger Lakeans do not want to be seen as unsuccessful as driving a Plymouth, and driving a Cadillac just showed that you were trying to show off. And remember his prophetic statement in 1940. Hey, I think those Japanese companies are up to no good. Why are they making those planes? They should be making cars. These are the things that I have been following you, kind of copying you. Like I said, my Christmas show is based upon Middle Finger Lake. So I really appreciate it. I like the fact that I was actually able to tell you this, because I've been admiring you from afar. Now, one of the other things too, I did a little research here, and you worked at your college radio station. And apparently, now I was station manager of a radio station in St. Bonaventure, and it seems like you and I had a similar experience in that the station was carrier current, right? You had to plug your radio into the side of the wall for people to hear it. Is that right?
Yes, it was a carrier station. It just went to the dormitories.
But it was good training.
But after I had worked for it for most of an academic year, they discovered that the transmitter had gone out, and the maintenance had not gotten done. The engineer had been busy doing other things, and so I had been talking to a glass window for 7 months, and that's sort of an awakening.
Yeah, it really is. Well, the thing is, I remember back when your radio had to be plugged into the wall, and there was this 60-cycle hum in the back, and the only people that really were listening to you were your girlfriend and your roommate. And I was never very good at storytelling and keeping people engaged. Like you had to. So you started working at a public radio station back in 74, was it?
I went to work for Minnesota Public Radio in 1969.
Really? Okay.
Yes. And it was the same year that I sold a story to the New Yorker magazine. So it was two big major events and it was also the year that my first child was born, my son. 1969. It all happened in 1 year. I was 27 years old.
We'll be right back to talk more after this. This is Dom from my friends at Jack Greco Furniture. You drive your car, you live with your furniture. That's why Nita and I buy our furniture locally from Jack Greco. Hey, lots of old name furniture manufacturers switch to mass production, producing their furniture who knows where. Why settle for that? Jack has quality pieces made by true craftsmen, and if you need a custom piece, Jack can do that for you too. The season's upon us. Jack has quality outdoor furniture you won't find anywhere else. Go to jackgreco.com. Hey gang, this is Dom. This section of the show is sponsored by, well, me. A couple of things here. One is now you can go to nononsenseroundtable.com and see a list of businesses that I use. They're listed under, well, businesses that I use, and I don't charge to be on that page, nor do I take endorsement fees. It's just places I can recommend. Next, if you like the idea of being a sponsor of one of the sections, it's affordable. Go to nononsenseroundtable.com and contact me there.
Now, what precipitated this Lake Wobegon and Prairie Home Companion thing? Was it just dawned on you one day, or you came to an epiphany, or wake up at 2:00 in the morning and say, "Hey, I got a great idea"?
I went to work for a non-commercial public educational radio station run by St. John's University. It was a classical music station. I got the job because I was the only applicant. It was to do the early morning shift 5 days a week and to go on the air at 5 a.m. And it didn't take long for me to realize that at 5 a.m., people are not in the mood for Brahms and Beethoven. They really aren't. They want entertainment. They want something moving. They want, but they want to have fun. Mm-hmm. They want to be amused. It doesn't take a brilliant person to understand this. Also understood that management was not awake at 5 a.m. And so I had creative freedom. And so I invented my own music policy. And I played jazz, especially New Orleans jazz. I played gospel quartets. I played old pop songs, doo-wop songs, the Everly Brothers. I played black quartets, the Supremes. I played, all of this upbeat music. And I invented sponsors, Powder Milk Biscuits, Jack's Auto Repair, the Sidetrack Tap, the Chatterbox Cafe, Bertha's Kitty Boutique. I invented sponsors to give me an excuse to talk about ordinary American life. Mm-hmm. I grew up with commercial radio.
Yeah.
To me, non-commercial radio was completely alien. It was, it was like some kind of spiritual calling or something. And I didn't want that. I wanted to be able to talk about powder milk biscuits, to give shy persons the strength to get up and do what needs to be done, which gives you an opening to talk about what is it that needs to be done. And there's a whole arena of comedy in that subject. So it was a device to give myself an opportunity to talk freely.
Yeah. And what you're saying actually is that the people that are running the station aren't even listening that time in the morning. Is that what you're saying?
Yes. And by the time they realize what you're doing, the show is popular. Yeah. and they're hearing from friends of theirs, that they really like this early morning guy. He seems to be having fun.
Well, yeah.
He's not, he's not talking in this fake British accent and, introducing the Elgar Symphony.
Yeah.
He's having a good time.
Yeah.
And this is what they want, especially in Minnesota, on a winter morning. You don't want to necessarily listen to Shostakovich.
But you hit on a point. My background is marketing. I have an MBA in marketing. I tell people there's impressions and there's engagement. Telling me that you have 10,000 people listening to you is all well and good. But how many of those people are actually listening? I mean, nobody buys. Nobody buys, well, I really like that. They buy love. They buy, wow, you got to hear this. This is something that you haven't heard anyplace before. And you seem to hit on that. You hit on this chord of people that are, from what you're saying, people that are kind of bored and they're used to just the normal thing. And there's a little bit of spark there that makes them engage with you and make them engage with you again and again, which I guess is, the holy grail of marketing, is getting people to keep on coming back, right?
Yeah, that's exactly right. And, you experience it, dozens of times every day. You start reading somebody's essay, you start reading somebody's column, and, 2 paragraphs into it, you put it aside.
Yeah.
Well, what happened there? That's how you learn about writing. Don't make the mistake that person just made.
Well, the thing that I look at, especially with the radio, I look at radio and what you do as sort of audio poetry. I mean, when you're looking at something on a screen, and these days there's pixels on a screen that you're seeing, and you're saying somebody's telling you what you should be seeing or thinking, whatever. But radio is, you're painting with watercolors or oils, and it's all in somebody's mind, and it's so much more enjoyable to me to hear one of your stories and the way that you articulate it. Especially your voice. Your voice. They say that James Earl Jones had the voice of God. James Earl Jones, God rest his soul, had the voice of like really, really maybe angry God, your voice is like, if I was on my deathbed and I want to hear God talk to me, it would be your voice. Oh, you've had a good time. Come with me. Finally, you can come. Don't worry about it. I would want to hear your voice.
The beautiful thing about James Earl Jones reading after he died, he grew up poor and black in Mississippi, and he had a terrible stutter.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, this guy was behind the 8 ball until he got into his mid-teens. He said later he didn't really start talking until he was 14. And what pulled him out of his dark corner was poetry. He fell in love with romantic poetry, with Wordsworth and Keats and Shelley and Chaucer. He loved Chaucer, and in Middle English, for God's sake, and Walt Whitman and so forth. Poetry and reading it aloud was what gave him his voice. And what changed my life doing this early morning radio show was the realization that other people, my listeners, were tied into a line of work. They were going to have to go off and teach 3rd grade. They were over-the-road truck drivers. They were going to have to drive, 1,000 miles in the next 2 days, and they were going to have to go to this job or that job, and they were going to have to go down to the, to the car agency and sell Hondas or whatever. They were locked into something, and my duty was to be free in their behalf. And that's what I was selling them, was the pleasure of freedom and spontaneity and improvisation. Mm-hmm. And they enjoyed it.
Right.
They enjoyed it. They enjoyed the fact that I was in their behalf for their amusement. I was free to make up stuff, and I was not like this priest of high culture, demanding that they admire, the Symphony Pathétique at 5 a.m. I was there in their behalf. It changed my life, and it pulled me away from serious fiction into comic fiction.
Yeah.
And that's where I've been ever since.
Well, what we're talking about in marketing terms is niche marketing. You have this niche, the dignity of the whole thought of this town, prairie town, the people there, their shared values, and there was never anything that you did where you made fun of these people in this town. They were hardworking people. They were people that people could relate to. I remember one story you told me about. What was it? Was a farmer? He was Swedish, and his son was marrying an Italian gal. And the difference between their cultures, where the father of the daughter is like, "Oh, Bella, oh, it's so nice," and whatever, and the other father is talking to his son and saying, "Yeah, you did well," and giving that type of perspective, and being done in such a human way, that really impressed me. Do you remember that particular episode?
The father of the groom, the Lake Wobegon guy, goes to meet the other family, and he's terrified of being hugged. He is not a hugger. He is a handshaker.
Yeah.
At most, he might put a hand on your shoulder. And here is this father of the bride who approaches him arms open, and my guy doesn't know what to do. He has to accept it. He knows he has to accept it, but it's so strange. And then a whole bunch of other people hug him, and the mother of the bride, this large bosomed woman, throws her arms around him and holds him close, and he just has to suffer through it and make the best of it.
What a wonderful observation of the human condition, because that is so true. That is so true, because people's cultures, I think people from cold cultures are a little bit colder than people from warm cultures. Warm cultures, the windows are open all the time. You can hear the people yelling at each other, like in my old neighborhood. But
my nephew married a woman from Portugal. She actually grew up in France, so she's got the best of both worlds, but she's basically Portuguese. These people live in this struggling country. Portugal is very poor, and they were out in this little village. And her father, Antonio, I met him at the wedding. My wife and I flew over to Portugal. Antonio speaks no French. Mm-hmm. He speaks no English. And he's the happiest man I can imagine he's comes up to you and he's regaling you with Portuguese, and he throws his arms around you, and he's as happy as can be. And I didn't know what to do with him, but I had the wit to recite Shakespeare to him, and he loved that. He didn't understand a bit of it, but he could feel the cadence of it, the rhythm of it. And when in disgrace with fortune in men's eyes, I all alone beweep my outcast state, and so forth. And we had a wonderful time. I told him jokes, and he laughed. He laughed at everything.
Well, you have this voice, though. You could be reading the phone book and people would be happy to hear your voice. You just have, God gave you a gift with that voice. I mean, yes, your intelligence and your ability to create a story and whatever, but also your voice goes along with it. I mean,
it comes from having listened to fundamentalist preachers preaching about the book of Jeremiah, and Isaiah. It comes from listening to very dark sermons.
What now? Do you have a favorite story or a favorite edition of? It was a quiet week. Is there something in there that you look back on and you go, "Wow, that was really something"?
No, I'm focused on what I'm these days, which is a novel. Mm-hmm. About Lake Wobegon, in which I go back to the town, and the town is prosperous, remarkably prosperous, and very happy with it. And the car dealerships are gone. Bunsen Motors is gone, and the building is occupied by Patricia's Pet Center, and she has all these products for dogs and cats, and also a pet therapist who can deal with your dog's emotional problems. And Prepsbach Chev is gone, and it's been replaced by a place called Universal Fire, which is selling artisanal white oak firewood seasoned with sea salt. And you buy a small bundle of kindling for $25. And, these things didn't exist back when.
Right. The town has changed.
The prosperity is due to an enormous tomato operation, which is owned by a tomato tycoon. And when you meet him, you immediately, in his manner of speech, you recognize that this is Donald Trump. Donald Trump is a lot of fun to imitate. And this guy is Donald Trump, and he, he's very much involved with himself, and that's my new Lake Wobegon.
Oh, God bless you.
The town is struggling to maintain its own identity against the influence of prosperity. And they're grateful for the prosperity, and at the same time they are rightfully aware of the dangers.
We'll be right back after this. This is Dom from my friend Jim Shelley and his Fanatics Pub and Blues Stage in Lima. We talk all the time about the great blues shows he has, and his patios open on weekends for free entertainment. Jim also has the Bills game on every Sunday. You can go there and watch the Bills in a setting that's more like, cheers than a big and personal sports bar. Exit 10, Route 390, go east a couple of miles and you're there. I'll be there. Come say hello. This is Dom for my friend John McClurg. John has 2 dealerships, McClurg Chrysler Dodge Jeep Ram and McClurg Chevrolet, both in Perry. Hey, you don't buy a car all that often, so when you do, shouldn't you go to a place you can put your trust in? You can depend on McClurg. John's dealerships are family dealerships where people you deal with today are the people you will deal with tomorrow. No nonsense. Go visit them at McClurg ChryslerDodgeJeep.com or McClurgChevrolet.com.
So, well, let's get a little retail in here. Now, you're going to be, tomorrow, Sunday, you're going to be in Hammondsport. I'm going to come see you, obviously. I promised you a T-shirt, which I'll give. Well, actually, it's a sweatshirt. I'll give you on my fictional town. Be very great to meet you if I could shake your hand. But you're going to be in Hammondsport, and I think the show is in the afternoon, right?
I believe so. Sunday afternoon. Yes, right.
And let's tell people how to get a ticket. It's on GarrisonKeillor.com. It's probably the easiest place to get a ticket, right?
Well, I think Hammondsport is not that big a town. You should be able to just wander over there and find a theater. It's probably a small theater. Or maybe it's somebody's house. There's a lot of cars parked down the street and just walk in.
There's better marketing than that. I think. just wander around until you see the theater, and that's where we'll be. What time? Sometime in the afternoon. That's it. But no, Garrison Keillor.
It's probably around 3:00.
Yeah, it's like 3 or 3:30.
And
yeah.
And I don't think they've sold more than about 4 or 5 tickets. And so, it'd be just a few of us. We may leave the theater and, go to a drive-in somewhere.
The self-deprecating humor is great. I just love it. I just love it for all the things that you've accomplished and how you've had an effect on people and America, all told. I say some people have woven their way into the culture of America. I've gotten pretty close with the fellows that the founders of the Rascals. You remember, Rascals. It's a Beautiful Morning, Groovin'. People got to be free, and these guys have woven their way into American culture. You can't listen to It's a Beautiful Morning and not feel that nostalgic about it or whatever. And you hear it all over the place. And guys like you've woven your way into American culture. And there's like nobody following you, right? I mean, you don't have like an apprentice waiting to come up and do the Garrison Keillor tour. It's not Garrison.
Funny idea.
Yeah, it's not Garrison Keillor, but it's an incredible simulation. How they do like the Beatles. Somebody dress up like you.
I've woven myself into American culture as a symbol of progress. I was born at exactly the right time. I was born 1942, so I got to see old farms. My grandma's farm, she farmed with horses. My Uncle Jim drove a team of horses, and I got to use an outhouse and read by a kerosene lamp, so I got to see some of the 19th century. But I was born late enough so that I was able to get open heart surgery to have a mitral valve repaired, and get anti-seizure medications to ward off strokes. I got the best of both worlds. I got to go to a revival service outdoors under a tent, and a preacher preaching about the end of the world and the Titanic and how, hell awaits those who do not come forward. And I came forward and I gave myself to the Lord, and I was baptized by total immersion. And so I've had a lot of experience in my life, and I'm grateful for all of it. I grew up when, you wrote with a ballpoint pen on a yellow legal pad, and you typed on a Underwood typewriter, and now here we are with laptops and a little screen, and so I got to see the progress of the 20th into the 21st century, and that's a lucky man who gets to see that.
I totally agree with you. At this point in time, I look back on my life, and everything that happened crappy in my life got me here, and I'm like, wow, I had no idea. If you told me when I was 22 years old that I would end up what I am now, married to 38 years, I have two beautiful daughters, 30 and 34, and a couple of bucks in the bank, and I don't have to worry about, now that I sold the dealerships, I don't have to worry about money and whatever. And if I was to look at where I was at like 22 years old and unemployed and depressed and whatever, I would never, ever, ever think that I would ended up here. And I look back at that, I go, yeah. You know what? These little twists and turns that you take, Garrison, who knows? If you are at a point in your life, like probably you are, because you don't have to do this anymore. You don't have to go out and entertain people to make money and to support yourself and whatever. When you get to that point, I think that's pretty cool.
Well, I do it because I don't know what I would do if I didn't, and
Yep.
I don't have any hobbies, and I mean, I can sit and read books, but I'm not sure I want to do that. And this is my exercise.
Yeah.
Walking through, airport terminals and walking back and forth on a stage holding a microphone. I'm not I don't do calisthenics. I don't run, and so it's a useful way to spend your time.
Yeah.
And when you stand in front of an audience, when you walk out with a microphone and you stand and look at, 400 people or 4 people, however many, your life comes into focus. You come into a point of concentration. It's not stage fright. Stage fright was over decades ago. It's a form of concentration which is very, very pleasant, to be engaged with these strangers sitting in dim light, and you can feel their responses, you feel tied into them, you feel responsible for them, you have something you need to accomplish in their behalf, and it's very, very pleasant.
Because, and to the point that you are engaging people. Now, the people that come to see you, and I use, like I said, I use this as a marketing term, they love you. For whatever way you want to explain that, they love you. It's not like, oh, this is a nice thing to go to. Yeah, go ahead. No, they love you. And that is palpable when you see a performance by somebody who cares for their audience and the audience cares for them. You can tell the difference. You can absolutely tell the difference. At least I think so.
Well, I have offended people.
Who hasn't?
I know that I have, and if you're in a stand-up business, which this is more than what I did on the radio, it's sort of your duty to come up to the line a little bit. But it's a game that you play with them. I want to tell them that I am a lucky man. I want to be honest with them. I'm not doing the comedy of complaint and misunderstanding and bereavement. I don't go there. I don't do comedy about my fundamentalist upbringing or my 2 bad marriages. They're way in the past, and I have no right to to go there. I am a very lucky man, but you run the risk of coming off as privileged.
Yeah.
And I simply want them to know that I'm grateful. And so I'm walking a narrow line, but it can turn some people off, and I recognize the danger.
Well,
I do not complain about being 82. I don't do that. I'm very, very fortunate.
Well, you said something before, kind of touched upon the things that, maybe, some things you might have, done differently, or this, that, the other thing. I'm a little bit of a philosopher, and in my faith, I think your faith too, you believe that there was one perfect person in the world and they crucified him. You could be perfect. You could be perfect, and there's still going to be people that are out to get you or don't like you or whatever, and that's it's on them. I mean, yeah, when you do something and you need to atone for it, that's one thing. But some people aren't going to like you no matter what. They don't like the color of your eyes, your height, whatever, and you have to forget about that. You could be perfect; it's still not going to make any difference. At least that's my philosophy.
Good.
So
that's my answer to that. Good.
If I can get a good from my idol, I don't want to fawn over you, but I've been, all these years, I wish I could have talked to you or gotten your advice, or just told you how much I respect the stuff that you do. But now it does sound like I'm fawning. I'm fawning. This guy, he's got.
I know nothing about the car. I know nothing about the car business, so I had nothing to offer you in the past. But now you're in my line of work, and I'm telling you to enjoy it and to be free. Freedom is a great accomplishment for any American male.
Oh, you're absolutely right. You're absolutely now. That's the only thing that money gives you. I tell my children this is freedom. It gives you freedom to do whatever you want to do. Now, the people that I'm meeting from this show, I mean, there's a fellow you probably never heard of. His name is Bobby Rush. Bobby Rush is a blues singer. Grew up in Louisiana he's 90 years old. So he was born in 1933. He just got his third Grammy. He got his first one at 83. Okay. And he got his third one. And I had him over my house because he was playing in town, and I made him spaghetti and meatballs. I mean, how would I get a chance to meet these people? Like you. I mean, talk about Grammys. You're a Grammy winner. You're a Grammy winner, a Peabody winner, National Radio Hall of Fame, National Humanities Medal. This is all the stuff. There's all this stuff we're talking to Garrison Keillor. I can't believe it. It's so cool. So
and soon America is very likely to elect its first woman president, and this will take an enormous load off the backs of us American men. Mm-hmm. We've been having to bear the burden of various presidents who have been less than great, and now we're going to be free, and President Harris will go her way and do her best, and we'll be able to devote ourselves to personal enjoyment. That's what I intend to do.
Well, I'm not a well-read man, but I know Thomas Paine wrote in Common Sense. He says that an aristocracy doesn't work because basically he said sooner or later you get an idiot in the bloodline, and it doesn't have to be an aristocracy. It could be a democracy too. Somewhere in there you get some real idiots elected. Maybe not in the bloodline, but elected. Another one of my philosophies of life, Garrison.
Well, it was great fun talking to you.
Yeah, you too. And honestly, I feel that way, that you have affected me, because I'm doing the radio, I'm doing a little bit of comedy, I'm doing, my stand up with the Middle Finger Lake and whatever, but it was from listening to you. And the other thing is that you affected us
as a family. Like, we would be traveling from here to there, and we would have one of, when you had cassette tapes, we had cassette tapes, and we're listening to Prairie Home Companion and Lake Wobegon, and listening to your stories as a family, and the ability to say that to you, like, not to fawn over you like some freaky groupie or something like that, but to say thank you, thank you for doing that. I know you didn't do it for us, but you did it, you did it for everybody, but you did it for us. I really have a very, I just have a very much of appreciation for you and what you've done and your path in life. And like we said before, not everything is perfect. Yogi Berra said, if the world was perfect, it wouldn't be. So.
And you've inspired me, and now I'm going to look around, because I live on the Upper West Side of Manhattan, and I don't see a Ford dealership in my neighborhood. Mm-mm. And I'm thinking of taking my money out of investment and buying myself a Ford dealership, maybe around 95th and Amsterdam, and see where it leads me.
Yeah, I tell you what, just go buy yourself a cheap convertible, take that money, put it in the back seat, put the top down, and go drive around, like 57th Street. You do just as well with that. That's
okay. All right.
But the other thing, I'm writing a book. I'm writing a book myself, and it's how to buy a car and not get screwed. I'll make money with that one. I know things. I know things that you don't know. The working title is Taken for a Ride.
Wow.
Yeah. And I got to tell you, Garrison, I know things. 17 years working for the company and 26 years owning my dealership. I know stuff that you don't know.
All right, I'm going to be watching for that book.
Okay, so Garrison, thank you ever so much for coming on my show. It was a delight having you, and we'll see you. We'll see you tomorrow, Sunday.
All right.
Thank you, sir. Okay, bye-bye.
Thanks for listening. Tune in every Saturday from 10 to 11 on News Radio Wham 1180. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and we'll make more.